All right, so let's get into the Vancouver Canucks breakdown here. I pretty much just wrote what I found, and I was gonna do it in like bullet points, but I pretty much have a pretty much a story to tell with this, so I'm just gonna read it verbatim. So the Vancouver Canucks have been an atrocity this season so far, and they currently are playing the Vancouver Canucks versus the Seattle Kraken. And before we do that, that's going to be a post pick. So who's going to win tonight? And I'm going to have you pick first. Who do you got? Vancouver Canucks finally getting their first win, or the Seattle Kraken taking it?
So I'm going to be a big-time pessimist here. I think the Seattle Kraken have surprised a few people this season, and they're getting those young guys up in the roster, up and running.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say that the Canucks are not going to get their win tonight, and I'm going to extend my pick and say they will not get a win until next week. At the earliest, they'll win Sunday if they play that day. I think they're not going to win over the weekend.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting. All right. Well, I'm gonna go complete opposite and say Canucks tonight's gonna be the night the Canucks are gonna take it.
Cool.
We'll see what happens. We still got time. Although I'll be editing this and be like, ooh, I wonder who's right. But yeah, let's
just to back my point a little bit. It's 10:31 here on Thursday. They're playing. First period, 8:33 left in the game. The Canucks are up. I'm sorry, 8:33 left in the period. The Canucks are up 1-0.
Ooh.
So I think they are not going to win because
They're
the
up.
Canucks are the first team to blow multi-goal leads 4 games in a row and lose, and that was to start this NHL season off.
Mm-hmm.
So they've had the lead in their first 4 games and lost it every time.
Right.
Multi-goal too. They're up by 2 at least. Crazy.
All right. So let's jump into this craziness right now because I really wanted to kind of deep dive into this. So this is the Vancouver Canucks breakdown as of October 25th, 2022. They currently sit dead last in the league with a 0-5-2 record. The 2 overtime losses came from playing away against the Blue Jackets and the Wild, which are both 4-3 finals and the game right after the last. They are currently riddled with 7 injuries. Phil DeGiuseppe, right? Oh, God. Travis Dermott, Tucker Pullman, Quinn Hughes, Riley Stillman, Brock Besser, and Curtis Lazar. The first 2 lines are the only offensive lines that are doing anything for this Canucks team. JT Miller, Bo Horvat, Connor Garland, and Elias Pettersson are most notable between the 2 lines. Pettersson so far with 3 goals and 4 assists. Miller, 4 goals and 1 assist. Horvat, 4 goals and 2 assists. And Connor Garland, 2 goals. Andrei Kuzmenko deserves a mention. He seems to be at the right place at the right time, making room to get a solid shot opportunities, and has quite hit the mark yet. He's currently 1 goal and 1 assist in 7 games played, with a team worst -6. Goaltending-wise, I stick with my guns here with Thatcher Demko. He's a solid goalie. The scores would have been so much worse if it wasn't him between the pipes. He's had a few that he should have had, but for the most part, the goals against were mostly solid redirects or odd man chances that he didn't have a shot in hell stopping, along with a few crazy bounces as well. In 6 games played, he's faced 187 shots, which is tied for second most in the league, allowing 24 goals of those shots, which is first in the league in time on ice with 354 minutes and 49 seconds. So he's been on the ice a lot longer than most goalies in the NHL currently right now.
And 2 overtime games will do that.
Yep. Spencer Martin, his backup, gave Demko a night off against the Columbus Blue Jackets, where he helped take the Canucks to OT, where they would lose 4-3 off a defensive mistake by the Canucks, which gave up a 2-on-1 opportunity. It was only 1 game, but his first NHL start since April 29th of last season, and was pretty solid given the situation. To really sum this up, they're lacking mostly defense. They sit dead last in team penalty kills with 55.6%, and they are too reliant on the top 2 offensive lines to get anything done. They rank 26th in the league for their power play, with a 13% chance at a successful one. Last season, they ranked 9th best with a 23.5%. They're 5th least in goals with only 18, and 2nd worst in the league in goals against with 30. Their biggest mistake was not making any trades and moves this past offseason, where they just stayed very complacent where they were. They picked up Mikheyev from the Maple Leafs and Curtis Lazar from the Bruins. Lazar is currently injured, and Mikheyev is off to a slow start from his career-high 21-goal season last season. They constantly start the game strong and will go up 1 to 2 goals, and then in the second and third periods, they will just collapse. This team needs a type of rebuild, not what Chicago is doing, but like third and fourth offensive lines, defenseman changes, and actual draft picks. So I want to talk about the draft picks here. The Canucks draft history hasn't had a first-round pick since 2019, where they picked up Vasily Podkolzin, who went 10th overall. They had 5 selections in the 2020 draft, with none higher than the third round. In 2021, they didn't have a draft higher than the 6th round, and in 2022, they had 1 first-round pick, which was Jonathan Lekkermiaki, and didn't pick again until the third round, which was Elias Pettersson. This team was dead last in the Pacific last year until they fired GM Jim Benning and head coach Travis Green. When GM Patrick Allvin was hired in January 2022, they were 7th in the Pacific with an 18-19-5 record. By the time Bruce Boudreau was hired in December, they dropped to 8th in the Pacific, but in 17 games, Boudreau helped them with a 10-4-3 record, which helped shoot them up to 5th place in the Pacific to finish off the season last season. I am just shocked, more so shocked about the draft when I was figuring out the drafts here, where just 2019, they have nothing, and you're kind of seeing it with this team right now. Just very
well. They had a first round pick this year, you said, so that's good.
That's good, but when you're watching these games, man, you're just like, they'll start beautifully. They started beautifully against the Edmonton Oilers, their first regular season game this season. I think they were up 2-0, and they played really well against the Edmonton Oilers. And then just like the rest of these games, second and third periods, I don't know what happened. They shit the bed. And the more you watch these games, again, what I'm saying, these top 2 lines are the only guys trying to produce. And it's just the bottom lines here. Just I don't know what the hell's going on. They're missing the talent. They're missing the guys. They have the 7 guys out injured right now. Brock Besser, Quinn Hughes, huge. Tucker Pullman, Travis Dermott. It just I don't know. They need some kind of rebuild. They need to start something soon. Bad.
So I don't necessarily think they need to rebuild. I think that as good as Bruce Boudreau was, to get back, get a new face in the locker room and get the team going, I don't think that he's a coach that can. How do I explain it? I don't think he's a guy. He's a driver. He's not motivating these players correctly. He relies on his players to self-motivate and to motivate each other. The motivation isn't coming down from him, I don't think. Mm-hmm. Point number 2, I think, is the injuries. Quinn Hughes is pretty big to be missing. He's a great defenseman for that team. And Brock Besser as well, having him out is pretty tough too. The other 5, not really that big of a deal, but having 5 guys down, that's really tough. Mm-hmm. Travis Dermott is a third-pair defenseman, as he wrote here. But, if you're missing 2 defensemen there, maybe they're suiting up 5D instead of 6, kind of like in men's league, when they have X amount of guys coming up. I did find an awesome article from Sportsnet. Hopefully we can have the link down here for you guys too. I'll send it along to you. But they have 3 main reasons why the Canucks have been just sucking lately. First thing that they put here is turnovers and chances allowed off the rush. So it says here, when protecting a lead, teams tend to play it safe to minimize the risk, but not the Canucks. They have 6.2 rush chances against per 60 minutes when leading, which is basically there's 2-on-1s, 3-on-2s, those kind of offensive zone rushes into their own end. They have 6 of those per game when leading. And that ranks them 27th in the league, which is among the worst. And all of the goals that have been allowed to blow leads have been off of an offensive zone turnover that turned into a breakout rush goal. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Point number 2, which I think is the biggest one, is penalty killing. That is a friggin' joke. 55.6%. Half the time that you're out there killing a penalty, you don't get the job done. Yep. That's insane, and that should be the main focus of the team in practice for, every day in between games. If that's how bad we are, and that's how you're eventually losing games, especially in a game 4-3, overtime loss, those kind of games when it's a 1-goal swing, you get one more successful penalty kill, and now the game's going in an entire different direction. Yep. So I think that's something that they should definitely be focusing on at practice, like number one. And then the third thing that they write here is goaltending, which I think was the biggest thing to me. Yes, Demko was a good goaltender, but I'm not cutting him any slack here. His stats are absolutely atrocious this season. The team is bad in front of him, yes, but that's not the only reason that they're playing poorly. Thatcher Demko has a 4.06 GAA and a .872 save percentage. I put a lot of the blame on him, personally. I think that when the going gets tough, the tough need to get going. And if Demko's that good of a goalie, he needs to come up with one or two of those goals and turn that 4-3 into a 3-2, because if the team focuses on the penalty kill and you're taking a goal off the board there, and Demko can come up with one of those saves that, we both think that he should be able to make, now it's a 3-2,
All right.
And that's a win. Something that they can't get this season, apparently.
Right. Just maybe tonight. But I want to go back to your penalty kill. Go back and just watch the highlights and just find them on the penalty kill. They have the 4-man box formation, and there's been so many times where the top guy, for some reason, is following the guy down to, like, the crease, and just, like, there's two guys on one, and you're like, what the hell is going on? At one point, they're just all over the place, and you're like, where's the formation? Like, what's going on? They looked so bad. It's unbelievable. And I was talking about the Spencer Martin, that overtime goal. It got turnover on their offensive side, and instead of, I can't remember who the player was, but he was coming up to, like, they're on the right side of the ice, and the player was coming up the left. Instead of hustling back to play defense, for some reason, he turned around, and there was two Vancouver Canucks on the one guy with the puck, where he passed it up, and then here was a 2-on-1, and that's how the game ended. I'm like, why is your mentality to go after that puck when it's a 3-on-3 overtime? You need to get back there and play defense. It just defensive. Go back and just watch them defensively. They look so fucking bad. There's again, like on my Instagram, I was just talking about just watching these highlights and just looking up like their plays and stuff. I was screaming at like my computer and like my phone, be like, why? Like, why are you doing this? They look so bad. So bad. And it's unfortunate that like their offensive guys, like the top two, like are just having a hard time just in general trying to score. And it's not them. They're getting the chances. They're trying to get it done, but they kind of run through some like hot goalies or some just good defense where they just can't get the puck by, And I don't know. It's not looking good for the Vancouver Canucks. They need to change something. Again, I didn't talk about full rebuild like Chicago Blackhawks. I'm just saying like they need to stop making big changes or it's gonna be bad. And like the fact that I was just saying like they were just as bad last season too. So to come back this season and still be this bad, and this is as we're talking about their offseason where they didn't make any fucking trades whatsoever, try to make any moves. You're like, how are you complacent with a team like that? And this is kind of what you get. And it doesn't help with those does not help at all, like what you said with those 7 injuries. Those are 7 big injuries, and it's hurting the team a lot.
Yeah, I think the Canucks head coach Bruce Boudreau had a good quote too. He said that the team is, quote, afraid to win and mentally weak. And I think the mentally weak thing is a very important thing to note here, because if a coach can see that in his team and doesn't address it, on the ice, at practice, in the locker room, and has to go to the media to like attempt to light a fire under their ass, like this just seems like it's like lighting the mast on fire as the ship goes down,
Mm-hmm.
And I think when a team's afraid to win, it makes them even more afraid to lose, and that's why their penalty kill's been that bad. They pack it in, they're not playing their penalty kill proper. They're just so scared to let that goal in, blow this lead. Like, it's almost like feeling cursed, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They also had some other good quotes here too, if you want. Bo Horvat said this was in response to basically how bad they've been and fans being fed up with them. He said, it's been a lot of years in the rebuild stage. At this point in the season, it just feels like it's never going to happen, like we're never going to win again. That's kind of insane. It kind of reminds me like the Miles Wood quote from a game into the Devil season.
Mm-hmm.
He also goes on to say that, quote, my jersey got thrown on the ice last year, and I'll never forget that for as long as I play.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, that's insane. Like, and the weird thing to me was his own teammate has a different opinion on like the same situation of Canucks fans throwing the jerseys on the ice. JT Miller says, if they want to throw their shit on the ice, it's up to them. I've got a job to do. I'm not worrying about if people want to come to the game, pay all that money, and throw their jersey on the ice. Go ahead. So for one of the leaders on the team to come out and say something like that, like, it almost says to me that, like, he wants out of this city and out of this team. And, like, I don't give a fuck. You can hate me if you want. But at the end of the day, like, you can hate JT Miller for saying this too, but it's the fan that you should really hate. Like, I don't think there's ever a point where you should be throwing a jersey on the ice. Like, come on now.
No, not at all. Like, that's just...
And I would take it to heart the way that Bo Horvat did personally. Like, the fact that his jersey was the one that's on the ice a couple years ago, last year, whatever. But something that he'll never forget. Like, that's kind of crazy.
And I don't know, man. Like, they're just on a bad losing streak, too. Like, I'm sure it's just a deflating feeling. I'm sure it's an absolute deflating feeling to come to, like, that rinks, like, away and home. They played mostly away, by the way. So it's just deflating to, like, go to, like, another city and just, like, sit there, get ready, and just have that just kind of depressing mentality. It's like, dude, we haven't won a game yet. Let's try to do something. And then they finish the game with just another loss, you know?
Personally, for me, I mean, every person's different. They think about things differently, but that's, like, such a motivator and a driver to me. Like, if we haven't lost in that many games, each time I go in there, I'm not going in depressed and thinking, like, oh, fuck, like, we're just going to fucking lose again. You need to go in with that, like, positive mentality. Like, enough's enough. We need to snap this. Like, tonight's the night. Let's go get our win.
Right.
But you're seeing all these tensions start to boil over, even on the ice after one of the losses. I believe it's Luke Shen skating up to JT Miller, like, after the game, like, as they're getting off the ice, like, something that can wait until the locker room. But he's making a scene on the ice, like, basically yelling at him. And good for Connor Garland, a new face to that team coming over from Arizona, stepping in between them and kind of, like, separating them with a body without making it obvious that, like, that's what he's doing. He tried to, like, downplay the situation a little bit, but it's just nuts to see that be brought up, you know, on the ice in front of 17,000 people to watch, and all the quotes that are coming out, all the shit going on. Like, at the end of the day, I think you're going to see a big name get traded away for something, and you're going to see a change in upper management. And I think Bruce Boudreau is one of the first guys, which is nuts because of how positive everyone was about him last season.
Yeah, that's what seems to be the case, too, with these NHL teams, as we were talking about last season, where a team is just having, like, a bad go. And their first thought is like, well, it's got to be the coach. And they just get rid of the coach.
I think it's just been like something that's proven to work around the league. You get rid of the coach and you bring in a new voice. Like, it usually ends up very well, right? Like, I feel like most new coaches come in and do well. I think the shelf life of coaches is very short, and they definitely are the first ones to blame. But the market is just that readily available. Like, if they fire Bruce Boudreau, guess what? There's 16 other teams with a losing record that are going to hire him.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly. Yep. And isn't Barry Trotz, like, not coaching this season?
He's taking the season off. He said he wants to rest and relax, enjoy retirement.
Imagine that.
He's not going there. He's fucking out. He had something on a silver platter, whatever contract he wanted, whatever team he wanted to go to, basically. He said, no, I'm kicking it. So I hope he comes back next year, but I also can see him, you know, fading off into the sunset, because I think that he's one of the older style coaches, you know?
I think he's done. He's ready to retire. But, yeah, man, something's gonna change. I kind of want to stick on to. Do you have any update on the Seattle game right now? Are they still up 1-0?
I can take a look. I imagine that the score is pretty close, but pretty much the same, because it was heading into the second period shortly. It is 2-1, Kraken, end of the first. Yeah.
Just to really solidify what the hell we're talking about, you know, just Amber Heard shitting on the bed, you know.
Jesus Christ. Moving on.